Okay, part 3 of chapter 11. We are in the middle of a Quidditch game here. It happened again. It was as though the broom was trying to buck him off. But Nimbus 2000s did not suddenly decide to buck off their riders. Harry tried to turn back towards the Gryffindor goalposts. He had half a mind to ask Wood to call a timeout, and then he realized his broom was completely out of control. He couldn't turn it. He couldn't direct it at all. It was zigzagging through the air and every now and then making violent swishing movements which almost unseated him. Lee was still commenting. Slytherin in possession. Flint with a quaffle, passes Spinnet, passes Bell, hits hard in the face by a bludger. Hope it broke his nose. Only joking. The Slytherins were cheering. No one seemed to have noticed that Harry's broom was behaving strangely. It was carrying him slowly higher, away from the game, jerking and twitching as it went. I don't know what Harry's doing, mumbled Hagrid. He stared through his binoculars. If I didn't know better, I'd say he lost control of his broom, but he can't have. Suddenly, people were pointing up at Harry all over the stands. His broom had started to roll over and over, with him only just managing to hold on. Then the whole crowd gasped. Harry's broom had given a wild jerk, and Harry swung off of it. He was now dangling, holding on with only one hand. Did something happen to it when Flint blocked him? Seamus whispered. Can't have, said Hagrid. Can't nothing interfere with a broomstick except dark magic. No kid could do that to a Nimbus 2000. At these words, Hermione seized Hagrid's binoculars, but instead of looking up at Harry, she started looking frantically around the crowd. What are you doing? Moaned Ron. I knew it, Hermione gasped. Snape, look. Ron grabbed the binoculars. Snape was in the middle of the stands opposite them. He had his eyes fixed on Harry and was muttering nonstop under his breath. Here's a picture of the boys flying. He's doing something. He's jinxing the broom, said Hermione. What should we do? Leave it to me. Before Ron could say another word, Hermione had disappeared. Ron turned the binoculars back on Harry. His broom was vibrating so hard it was almost impossible for him to hang on much longer. The whole crowd were on their feet, watching, terrified, as the Weasleys flew up to try and pull Harry safely onto one of their brooms. But it was no good. Every time they got near him, the broom would jump higher still. They dropped lower and circled beneath him, obviously hoping to catch him if he fell. Marcus Flint seized the quaffle and scored 5 times without anybody noticing. Come on, Hermione, Ron muttered. Hermione fought her way across the stand where Snape stood. It was now racing along below him. She didn't even stop to say sorry as she knocked Professor Quirrell headfirst into the row in front. Reaching Snape, she crouched down, pulled out her wand, and whispered a few well-chosen words. Bright blue flames shot from her wand onto the hem of Snape's robes. It took perhaps 30 seconds for Snape to realize that he was on fire. A sudden yelp told her that she had done her job. Scooping the fire off of him into a little jar, she scrambled back along the row. Snape would never know what had happened. It was enough. Up in the air, Harry was suddenly able to clamber back onto his broom. Neville, you can look now, Ron said. Neville had been sobbing into Hagrid's jacket for the last 5 minutes. Harry was speeding towards the ground when the crowd saw him clap his hand to his mouth as though he was about to be sick. He hit the pitch on all fours and coughed. Gold fell out of his hand. I've got the snitch, he shouted, waving it above his head, and the game ended in complete confusion. He didn't catch it. He nearly swallowed it. Flint was still howling 20 minutes later, but it made no difference. Harry hadn't broken any rules, and Lee Jordan was still happily shouting the result. Gryffindor had won by 170 points to 60. Harry heard none of this, though. He was being made a cup of strong black tea in Hagrid's hut with Ron and Hermione. It was Snape, Ron was explaining. Hermione and I saw it. He was cursing your broomstick, muttering. He wouldn't take his eyes off of you. Rubbish, said Hagrid, who hadn't heard a word of what had gone on next to him in the stands. Why would Snape do something like that? Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at each other, wondering what to tell him. Harry decided to tell him the truth. I found out something about him, he told Hagrid. He tried to get past the 3-headed dog at Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal whatever it's guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. How do you know about Fluffy? He said. Fluffy? Yeah, he's mine. I bought him off a Greek chap I met at a pub last year. I lent him to Dumbledore to guard the... Yes, said Harry eagerly. Now don't ask me any more, said Hagrid gruffly. That's top secret. But Snape's trying to steal it. Rubbish, said Hagrid. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd do nothing of the sort. So why did he just try to kill Harry? Cried Hermione. The afternoon's events certainly seemed to have changed her mind about Snape. I know Jinx when I see one, Hagrid, and I've read all about them. You've got to keep eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking at all. I saw him. I'm telling you, you're wrong, said Hagrid hotly. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try to kill a student. Now, listen to me, all three of you. You're meddling in things that don't concern you. It's dangerous. You forget that dog, and you forget what it's guarding. That's between Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Aha, said Harry. So there is someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, isn't there? Hagrid looked furious with himself. All right, and that's the end of chapter 11. We will continue with chapter 12 tomorrow.